Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. I hope you've all had a terrific Tuesday so far. Today we're going to be giving our daily cryptocurrency market update, where we not only tackle the realms of cryptocurrency, but we look at the external world around us, as we know that we get affected by things that go on elsewhere in other markets, global events, so on and so forth. And at a $2.2 trillion market cap, we are still very small in terms of an asset class. We have single equities with nearly 1.5 times our market cap. And we've got a long way to go. And that's the real value proposition with crypto, is that you're early. And we're going to talk about a number of things in this video. We're going to get into the charts because there's some really positive signs coming out of some of these charts. We're going to be looking at the fear and greed index. We're going to be looking at the fact that Bitcoin, on a number of indicators, is extremely oversold. We've covered this in previous videos, not the Nvt Signal, but we're going to cover this one in this video. We're also going to be looking at this article here. Internet may be just a passing fad as millions give up on it. What are you seeing today with crypto? The thing is, and this is what we've said since the start of the channel, with blockchain, there is a technological revolution taking place. And a kindred to every other technological revolution, there's teething problems. There's resistance, there's adversaries, so on and so forth. And just like people doubted the internet, people are doubting blockchain and the role that it's going to play in the world that we are moving towards. So I want to be reminding people of that. We're going to get into a little bit about the Turkish lira, because Erdogan essentially has came out and he's come up with a way to tinker and bolster and strengthen the lira. The lira saw huge downside in inflation. We've seen this in the Bitcoin chart. Remember that Bitcoin is not just, and Bitcoin against Turkish lira, sorry, Bitcoin is not just a hedge against the US dollar. It's a hedge against all fiat systems around the world, because they're all controlled by governments. And it was Ludwig von Mises who said that governments are the only people capable of taking a perfectly valuable commodity such as paper and making it worthless. And we've seen that time and time again, not just in present day, but throughout history. So we will get into that. We'll talk about regulations. Cryptocurrency regulations are actually not a bad thing. And then, of course, we're going to jump into some of our traditional financial stocks, indexes, and so on and so forth, to show you what they're telling us. Because we're seeing Ftse was down yesterday. We saw a huge buyback, and we've actually seen it rally somewhat. Even oil is somewhat rallying. The S&P closed yesterday. It was kind of coming down, but we saw a bit of a buyback towards the end of yesterday's the close of yesterday's trading session. And ultimately, I think this is going to uptick with the Ftse and so on. And the dollar currency index, it's amazing how tethered these are. Now, let's take a look at the market as a whole. A bit of a happier day today, a lovely green screen. But one thing that's important to take note of is it's Bitcoin leading this market. Every single person out there needs to acknowledge the fact that Bitcoin is the driver of value in this space. It is absolutely the tide that rises and sinks all the ships out there. And we're seeing that today, ladies and gentlemen. And Bitcoin will typically, when it nosedived like in May, the market will follow. And when it uptrends, it will be the first runner and the market will rally behind it. And we're seeing that today. Bitcoin's kind of broken out of this channel that we have over here. What we'll do is we'll dive into the charts, and then we'll get into some of the related articles, some of the related stocks and so what surrounding it. So Bitcoin's obviously broken out of this channel here. One thing that's important to note is it's not done it with momentum. And even if you look at the volume, very low volume, it's just that what you've had here is an overwhelming of the sell pressure. One thing that I like about this, and we've said this, and those of you that watch me, when we had this sell-off and we saw this wick, we said that what's likely is consolidation. And that's exactly what you've seen. You'll set up structure, you'll maybe bottom out before we see continuation. Well, hopefully we bottom out. This does look like bottoming out structure to me, a bit of a falling wedge. On top of that, with these marginally lower lows, you can see that the sell pressure gets exhausted. Issue is markets are very low volume, and we've looked at things like Google Trends and so on and so forth. So I'd like to see a little bit more strength with this breakout. We will see. Ultimately, and we said it right at the start of the video, you're still very early in the cryptocurrency market evolution. And that's the value proposition. And we absolutely believe, if we look at markets, we're seeing a bit of a green day today, but the fear and greed index is still in fear. And this is really because people believe that we might be entering a bear market. Some people remember 2017 and they remember what 2018, the turn of the new year, brought. I don't believe we're entering a bear market. I still think we're in, on a macro timescale, a bull market. I think Bitcoin on a macro timescale in terms of adoption is very early in that curve. And I think ultimately there's a lot of evidence to suggest that cycles are lengthening in the way that the previous cycle was larger than the one before that in terms of the amount of time that it took to complete. And the one before that was longer than the one before that. And today, I think you're going to follow that trend. And I'll show you that in the Brave New Coin Index towards the end of the video. So Bitcoin looks good. Ethereum, anybody calling for a bear market, please go and have a look at the Ethereum chart. It does not look like a bear market to me, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, we can even take it off log. We use log just to quiet things down. You can see this is still a very, very strong chart. And this trend here, even on a macro trend, is higher highs and higher lows. And that's what we're expecting to continue to happen. There's so much on the horizon for crypto. This really is a technological revolution. Let's talk about our good friend Cardano. Few things I like, few things I'm not so keen on with ADA. Now, this is really what we've got in play here. Certainly on the small term 4-hour time frame. Ultimately, on a macro time frame, we still think you're putting in higher highs and higher lows. Yes, you're getting very close to that low of May, but ultimately, when you really understand what's around the corner for Cardano, it's very hard to be anything but bullish. Certainly with the turning on of their dApps and the DeFi ecosystem flourishing, the yields are going to be insane, and we've covered that in other videos. This is what you've got setting up. You've got this kind of descending triangle. Now, typically, these will break to the downside. And ultimately, you keep getting rejected from this descending resistance and you're coiling up. And you can see that. We said that this might be a play. If you start to sell off here, the issue that you've got is if you keep knocking on this door, eventually you will, or eventually somebody will answer it. So we need to see a breakout of this, an uptick. Ultimately, I'm nothing but bullish on ADA. In yesterday's video, and this is going to tie into the next thing that we're going to go into, which is the fact that Bitcoin is looking rather oversold. We looked at the weekly time frame for Cardano. And we looked at the RSI, and we look at typically where we are in terms of the RSI, and right around this level, historically, even in the bear market, if nothing else, there's been a relief rally. So we're expecting big things for that. So these three charts look relatively positive to me, certainly with this break for Bitcoin. You can see Bitcoin really is leading the market. Let's talk about the Bitcoin Nvt Signal. This is from Willy Woo, a great on-chain analysis, probably my favorite on-chain analyzer. The NVTS is a bit of a granddaddy as far as on-chain indicators go, but it still works. It doesn't signal oversold very often, and here you are today, ladies and gentlemen. You can see historically, whenever you've been down at these levels, in fact, even March 2020, we didn't get down to where we are today. You'll get a rally on the upside of it. And this all ties in with what we're expecting for the new year. We're expecting the bull run to continue. Crypto is the new thing, ladies and gentlemen. And that brings me on to my next point. Internet may be just a passing fad as millions give up on it. With even the car revolution, guys, you saw a massive campaign against it. In fact, I think when cars first came out, you needed 3 people to operate them. One had to hold flags. One, I can't remember the other 2 roles. But, with every emerging technology, with car really was a form of technology or engineering. You see a pushback. With computers, you saw a huge pushback. With the internet, you saw a huge pushback. With crypto, you're seeing that again today. And the internet and some of the stocks that have come out of it make up trillions of dollars in market cap. Certainly, Apple alone is $3 trillion. We're at a $2.2 trillion market cap as a whole industry. How can you not be bullish? Yes, the short-term price action can be brutal, but ultimately, how I've made money in the crypto space is by buying and holding. And that's a tried and proven method. So important for me to mention that. Bitcoin hits 49k as Bitcoin price gets unlikely boost from Erdogan's Turkish lira tinkering. Now, we did do this. We looked at a number of currencies against Bitcoin because they look slightly different from the Bitcoin USD chart. Because Bitcoin, like I say, is not just a hedge against the US dollar, it's a hedge against all fiat systems because they're all lousy, they're all controlled by governments. And when you give governments those sort of powers, they tend to misuse them. We're seeing that today on a global scale with governments and the kind of pure hypocrisy that is taking place. That's all I'm going to say on that. But you can see that the Turkish lira, I think this is the biggest rally. And obviously, if we invert the chart, that's what the Turkish lira chart against Bitcoin looks like. But this is obviously Bitcoin. I think this is the biggest rally since 40 years for the Turkish lira. And this is because Erdogan essentially came out and said he's going to bolster and strengthen and back the lira as we saw huge amounts of inflation take place. Somewhat a little too late. There's already been a massive amount of inflation taking place, but this is something I'm going to watch. Let's take a look at the Ftse. Ftse saw a massive buyback. We were down yesterday. Look at this for a wick, ladies and gentlemen. I've actually looked, and I can't really find too many wicks that are similar to this, or one over here, and look what that led to. So markets as a whole are still very shaky. We've got the Evergrande stuff going on. I wish they would just hurry up and default officially by now and go into the liquidation procedures because we've already covered this. if you guys that follow me will already know that Evergrande were going to default. We went into detail on why. It's going to happen, and it is going to have an effect on markets around the world due to how much debtors they owe money to. Even BlackRock hold Evergrande bonds, or did. I'm not sure whether they still do. So that is going to have an effect. And also we've got the new variant. We've got all that stuff taking place, which is why you're seeing such uncertainty with markets. People are trying to figure out a direction. You know, they don't want to miss the boat, but at the same time, they don't want to be early to the sell-off if that takes place. Even oil saw an uptick. The S&P closed still in the red, but it did see a buyback towards the end of the session, which I was watching. I'm ultimately expecting this to continue going up with these two assets. And you've got the dollar here, which is seeing red. Funnily enough, in complete contrast to Bitcoin that is seeing green. So we'll watch this market. This was just a daily cryptocurrency update that we do daily. Usually we'll get them about 12 p.m. UK time. This one's coming out at 1 p.m. UK time. Just sort of depends on my schedule. Like, for example, today I'm going to have to go to the gym. I've had lots of things I've got to sort out. So you guys know this isn't my job. It's my passion. I'm fortunate enough that I have the free time to come on here and speak with you guys, and I love doing it. Very quickly before I close, huge thank you to each and every one of you supporting this channel. It does not go unnoticed. Yes, I may not have time to reply to all the comments, but, you know, big thank you and well done, guys, for sticking with crypto. I honestly think that this space is going to change people's lives. That's why I created this channel over a year ago now. We've been right since then. Certainly, we were expecting a kind of 2017, 2013-esque style end to this year. That hasn't happened. You know, we've also gone on and showed the counter arguments to that, which is the lengthening cycle theory and everything that takes place there. And we are expecting that to play out. But we've been largely right. People only want to mention the short term, like for Cardano example, or even Bitcoin. We've been covering Bitcoin since it was, under $9,000 publicly. I've been in it for a lot longer than that. We've been covering Ethereum when it was like $100 and something, and Cardano even cheaper. We've really been covering Cardano since sub 20 publicly, and prior to that we've been covering it to friends and family for a lot longer. And we've been very right on the macro trend, and I think I'm going to continue to be right. Yes, short term, these markets are very hard to call, but I'm human, so are you guys. Let's not be hypocrites. Let's all get on with each other and move forward and work out how this market's going to look. That is all I have for you in this video, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to love and leave you on that note. If you've enjoyed the content, like is always appreciated. So is a comment, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next YouTube video. Have a terrific Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen.